inappropriate. One of the, if not the most quintessential examples of 12-inch wool being pulled over the eyes of so many willing recipients. I wasn't going to talk about September 11th. I was going to comment on get out of second gear. How you can see pockets of illumination, enlightenment, getting it, waking up, however you want to define the recognition of a person or a group of people's enhanced understanding and awareness of the situation that surrounds us, in so much as they can see some of the chains on their hands and feet. But the problem is and they don't recognize it, the people waking up, that it'll only be a partial understanding. Because everyone still holds something dear to them. A line that can't be crossed, a value that can't be dismissed. You know, everyone's got their sacred cow. And up until then, no problem. Let's fight the good fight. Let's stick it to the man. So sitting there, as I do, it's like you can see the potential for pure existence. It doesn't have to look so different than it does now. Although, I'd be shocked if there were as many fast food restaurants in the future of enlightenment. Would still be here. People would still be doing things, but they'd be doing them because they knew they were the right things to do. Greed would not be something to protect against because people wouldn't be greedy. So would have people trying to hoard things because no one else would want to hoard them either. I know it's hard to let your imagination run that wild, and that's why they've killed our imagination, to prevent us from envisioning what others would call utopia, with the connotation that it cannot be achieved, not with the connotation of simply the perfected existence that we haven't attained, with the understanding that it's completely possible. And the reason we can't get there is everyone's got their sacred cow. What we need is each person individually and therefore collectively to stand up and rise up and say, all that I hold dear, or maybe put it a better way, the only thing that I hold dear is truth itself. Implicitly understanding that from truth will come all happiness, life, liberty, and property. life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. However you want to look at it. If we just got everyone to abandon every idea but truth, we could rebuild the country, the world, virtually overnight. But everyone's going to hold on to something, some fallacy. Their politics or their religion. It's like you can almost taste it. Because people are coming online to the horrors that surround us, and everyone's still scratching their head like, man, this just doesn't make sense. Why would it be this way? Well, if you can forego all the things you think you know and start over simply from the point of truth, then we got this. It won't be so hard. Have you ever asked yourself why you believe what you believe? What's the primacy, I guess, of your beliefs? Start breaking it down. I honestly think in a matter of a few minutes, you could have most of that broken apart into little bitty crumbles. So you'd say, okay, I believe these things. I learned them in school. Okay, we'll address that institution. I believe these things because they were told to me by the government. We'll address that institution. I believe these things because they were told me by other authoritative bodies. We'll address those institutions. I believe these things from friends, culture, et al. Okay, we can address that. I believe these things because I saw them on TV. They'd be kind of lumped into that if they could parse that out specifically. I believe these things because they were taught to me by religion. And this I learned on the street, picked up as I went. All right. There's probably, I don't know, I'm guessing less than 1%, but we'll call 5% of things that the average person holds as a truth or an understanding that they came to of their own volition, and will include their personal life experiences, their unique events that have transpired with them at particular times and places as part of that. But the rest of it has been programmed into them, usually by people and institutions that either A, don't know what they were talking about, or B, knew what they were talking about and intentionally fed them the wrong information. I've actually been saying for a long time, anytime something bad happens and someone does something, I'll say, well, were they being dumb or were they being mean? Were they stupid or evil? Did they with intention do this evil, or did they without intention lead one astray? Stupid or somewhat ignorant. In almost all the institutions we listed, any of those derived by or through the state are intentionally leading one astray. So, it comes back to, why do you believe what you believe? Okay, given to me by these corrupt institutions. Oof. So now, follow-up question would be, how do you know what you were taught is true? And the knee-jerk reaction would be like, well, because fill in the blank wouldn't lie to me. You know, it's their job to tell me the truth. It's their job to be nice to me. It's their job to love me, etc., etc. And then you can pick any single one of those examples. Strictly interpersonal, you have to parse out for yourself. You know, were your parents malevolent or benevolent in their raising and rearing of you. You know, they may have just not known any better. But as far as government, schools, you name it, they are all intentionally feeding you drivel and dross. And countless upon countless examples can be given of when those institutions knowingly harmed other people. I don't even have to get into that. Okay, so now it's like, alright, so I believe those things because I thought they had the best intentions, but they don't. Turns out that they have only their own intentions and they're not in it for me. So, follow-up question would be, why would one continue to believe those things? Or, this is more or less the same, why would one continue to engage in those thoughts and not choose to begin to change their perceptions and their understandings and to explore truth now that they know? Now the onus is on the individual now that they know they've been led astray. And if someone was honest with themselves, they'd say, oh, it's because, we got soccer practice and I gotta make dinner and, all these other justifications that pretty much come down to I'm lazy, I'm tired, I don't want to, which is completely unacceptable. And embedded somewhere in there, they're still holding on to one of their sacred cows, believing, whether it's in their religion or the government, that it's not completely all that bad, or I'm still a good person, and even if I don't work on myself, I'll still go to heaven as long as I do these other few things. They're not seeing the playing board for what it really is. They've cherry-picked the angles of view of how they think life is constructed, and through their justifications feel as if their lack of action, their inaction in changing, now that they know that they've been deceived, because they don't want to do work on themselves and have to dig through everything else that might be a lie and put in the effort, it's easier to say, it's probably not such a big deal after all. Again, you've got one of those sacred cows. And the point here is, until we get everyone to abandon all preconceived ideas and thoughts and fixations with any of the systems and institutions across the board, you gotta cast them all to the side. You can't continue to hold on to anything but truth. Hold that as the one and only principle from which we can rebuild our understanding. Until you do that, we're never going to achieve what all these little pockets of partial awakening and awareness feel like they're stumbling on and out in the streets calling for. Everyone's posting this and that, and they've got this partial understanding of the evils fomented against us, and they're not wrong with it, that part, but until they cast aside even their institutionalized institutions, so to speak, we can't rebuild a great society without completely starting over from scratch on the premise of natural law. I guess what I was trying to drive at is, even though it looks like we're making these small advancements with pockets of people having an awakening, those in control know that it's ultimately going to be a failed attempt unless each of these groups of people can have, or all people individually can cast aside all beliefs save that of truth, because without starting from scratch, we'll never be able to properly rebuild our understanding of the reality of pointing out the sick humor in these little glimmers of hope, and how the other side realized, well, as long as that group still holds this thing, this ideal, as part of their truth, then we know they'll never have fully broken down to the absolute truth. Again, whether it's in the freedom movement or a group holding on to an understanding of money or energy or legitimacy of military or what have you. And I guess I'm just throwing this out there as a video of caution that the only way to ensure real, positive, transitional progress is for us to cut away all things that are not 100% pure truth and start there. And that means cutting away all belief systems that are attached to pretty much any institution. You can continue to hold dear to yourself the idea of unity consciousness. I let you hold on to that. The creative force, whatever you want to call that, and seeking to align one's thoughts and emotions and actions, one's unity consciousness with the greater cosmic spirit, if you want to call it that. That's about it. And this burning desire to uncover that which has happened, actual true historical events, and then live presently in the moment for that which is actually happening. And if we start there, we're golden. We're absolutely golden. But as soon as you externalize anything, and no, I'm not talking about a 5-year-old that needs help because they can't reach the cereal on the top shelf or need someone to help them look both ways crossing the street. That's parental or adult guidance. And again, that's all that is. And we can even be guides to each other. It need not be on an age basis. But with those exceptions, I expect each person to be doing all of this on their own. Look for no leader other than the one yourself. So, we won't have success if we can't strip it all away and start back at the primacy of truth.